Yo, Descendants, Augiesaint here and welcome to the channel. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day, and we need to talk about Dummy Mommy Gley. She is just obliterating Void Erosion. It literally doesn't matter what weapon you use, although there's quite a few weapons that do stand out when you are using Gley, because you can obviously opt for doing the gun build Gley where you don't ever have to reload because you use your sensory, which is the infinite ammo skill, and you never have to reload, and then you can stack crazy amounts of fire rate. And you can just take whatever gun to the next level with Gley. So I'll give you the top 3 weapons that I think everybody should have on their gun Gley. And I guarantee if you have these weapons built and you go into Void Erosion 30 matchmake, even solo, quite easily. That's including the boss as well. Very, very easy. I put me in a group and I'm doing a ton of damage. Today on stream we did so many runs with chat. We just invite whoever's down to do some 30s. Doesn't matter what you got. And we have enough damage to just clear through there and blow through there. I think my highest run has 1.6 billion damage, and that's more than about half of the actual total damage you need to clear through the full Void Erosion. And that's me in a 4-man group from the chat, and we are just going through blasting away. So without further ado, let's hop into the infamous guns of Gley. I think these are the best 3 on Gley, depending on the situation as well as who you get in the group. But if you have these, you can pretty much switch these around depending on who you have and use whatever you got. So first up, we have the Perforator. We like to call this one the percolator on the stream because, yeah, we love coffee and this thing definitely percolates through everything that is in front of it. Now, you want to get a ton of fire rate on this. It does have 3 fire rate cores. That's one thing you're going to have to keep in mind with Gley. Most of the weapons that you build for her all do rely quite heavily on fire rate cores, and as we all know, farming fire rate cores in the Void Erosion is quite a large pain in the butt. But once you get these fire rates, 1% fire rate does make a huge difference because it scales exponentially. So going from that 17% to 18%, even 20%, just 1% fire rate is a huge boost in Gley specifically, because obviously we can do the infinite ammo thing and then just keep firing like crazy. So the fire rate cores is very important to actually get those as high as possible. I would say you want to aim for at least 18 on all the cores, but that's the main focus with the Gley cores, is you really need to try and get that fire rate up as much as possible. So let's have a look at the Perforator. We got fire rate, crit damage, fire rate, and then Legion of Darkness. And if we have a look at the weapon rolls, we got chill attack, crit damage, and then Legion of Darkness damage, as well as firearm attack. Do keep in mind, whenever you roll a core with a faction, you have to have that faction on the weapon as well, because if you don't, it's not going to be giving you any boost, because that 540% faction bonus is actually being pulled from the flat faction damage on the weapon itself. So if you don't have faction on the weapon rolls, then do not pick it up in the weapon cores, because it will be doing nothing for you. So those are the cores and the rolls. Now let's actually have a look at the mods. Now this is set up if you are playing with the Enzo. I'm going to give you guys a few suggestions to change if you're not playing with the Enzo. So if you are playing with the Enzo in your group, this is what I would suggest to use. Fire rate up, action reaction, rifle reinforcement. That's just your firearm attack. Then we have chill enhancement and chill priority. Make sure you do switch your elements depending on what level of Void Erosion you're farming. So if you're doing like 28 and 29, make sure you switch those over to electricity or whatever it is you're doing. Make sure you always match the element. Then we have weak point sight, better insight, better concentration. This is all just for increased crit and weak point damage. Better concentration there just for more crit damage. And then lastly, we have insight focus for some more crit hit rate. That is if you are playing with the Enzo. If you're not playing with the Enzo, I would suggest switching out insight focus maybe for edging shot. You lose a little bit of firearm attack, but you will gain a crit rate. And with the Perforator, if you're not critting, then you're not getting as many explosions. So that's the main focus with the Perforator. You want to always be critting. If you do have an Enzo with this mod, you will crit all the time. If you don't have an Enzo, I suggest dropping Insight for edging shot to make up for the difference. And now let's have a look at the new kit on the block, the Last Dagger. As you guys have seen in the last couple of days, people are doing crazy things with this thing. It is absolutely just melting the Void Erosion guy, Void bosses too. You can kill Defiler in like 6 seconds with this gun. We have actually started working on a second one for ourselves. There's one right there. This is our Colossus one. I don't recommend doing that because they were speaking about something in the Q&A today with the devs, where we might get like a preset system to save weapon cores and things. So maybe in the future we can easily change weapon cores without having to change weapons. So hopefully that comes rather sooner than later. But for now, we are just building ours, and I'm showcasing this one over here. This one is going to be focusing on Void Erosions. So first of all, we're looking at the cores. We have chill attack on the top roll, double firearm attack, and then again double fire rate. So the pain in the butt there, you got to get those fire rate up as high as possible. The rolls on the bottom would be crit damage, weak point damage, firearm attack, and then chill attack, because obviously we're going to be building this mainly just for using or farming Void Erosion 30. And then let's have a look at the mods. We are running fire rate up, better concentration, weak point, have aiming, just for more weak point over here with both of these mods. Rifle reinforcement, action reaction, just for the increased firearm attack. We are running mental focus because we are going to be using this on Gley. You can easily keep up mental focus on Gley permanently because when you run out of bullets, you activate your mental focus. That will all be within the 2-second duration because as you guys can see there, when firing a firearm attack plus 1% for 2 seconds. So that gives you more than enough time to go ahead and hit your sensory again on Gley. And also one little trick you can do on Gley to keep your stack even while you're moving, like if you want to move faster, you just shoot and you roll and you shoot, roll, shoot, roll, shoot, roll. That way you'll keep your stack going the whole time. And also just hit your sensory when you are going to run out so you can keep shooting the whole time. You can easily maintain your stacks. And then we do have Overwhelm. This is mainly just for the boss on Void Erosion because he is weak to Pierce, which happens to be the Last Dagger's effect. Although I'm not a super fan of this, I haven't done like massive testing on this yet, but it does give you a nice little boost when you actually go for it. And you definitely want to be going for the weak point hits on the boss, go for the headshots, especially with the recent buff to weak point damage and elemental scaling and everything. You want to make sure you are hitting your headshots, so the weak points. And then we also get the affinity match over there. We're not really using the Last Dagger for mobbing. We're only switching to this when we get to the boss. If you do plan on using this for mobbing, maybe drop Overwhelm for something like Chill Priority just to get more chill during the run. However, this is what we're currently running since we're only using it for the boss. And then the last weapon we have to look at is the Restored Relic. Now this one is going to be a pain in the butt because this one is a ton of fire rate cores. As you can see the cores there, we want 3 fire rate up cores. So the first, second, and then the last core is all going to be fire rate as much as you can possibly get. And then we do have 2 chill cores on there as well because again, we are building this for level 30 specifically. And then the weapon rolls itself, we go for crit damage, explosive attack, and the faction bonus does roll super high on rocket launches. As you can see there, 27,000, quite a nice boost. And then chill attack as high as you can get it as well. Now let's have a look at the mods for this bad boy. We are actually building this as like a crit weapon because you see I have quite a bit of crit there. If we opened up, our crit hit rate is 20%. So not bad crit rate to play with. And then if you do have an Enzo in the group, dropping down the crit supply for you, this just makes this thing go even crazier. It's very, very powerful. Even without the Enzo, it's totally fine. But if you do have the Enzo, it's just so much better. These are the mods we're running. Again, rifle reinforcement, action reaction, fire rate. These 3 are pretty much a staple on every single gun build as you guys have seen now. And then we do run better insight, better concentration, help with crit chance and crit damage. Concentration priority for the crit damage again, since the reload time doesn't affect us. And then insight focus again for crit hit rate and crit hit damage. And then running dual elemental mods down below, chill enhancement and chill priority because we don't have to worry about the reload. And then lastly, we have increased radius. Now this one is a little bit of a flex slot. I would take this out if you're playing with a Lepic in your group. If you don't have a Lepic in your group, you should leave it on to increase the radius of your explosions. But if you are playing with a Lepic, I would suggest switching out the radius for something like Snowflake Conductor or any of the Conductor mods depending on what enemies you're fighting. If you're doing Void Erosion 30, I would switch it for Snowflake Conductor because this is going to give you, I think it's like 26% firearm attack when attacking enemies inflicted with electrocution, or in this case it will be chill. And all of them will be frozen with the Restored Relic because it does free stuff extremely fast. So it's also really good to use as a CC weapon. When I am running solo Void Erosions on my Gley, I pretty much always use the Relic throughout the run. Then when I get to the boss, I switch over to my Last Dagger. So those are the mods and the cores and everything for the weapons. Just let me quickly tell you now where I think you should use these weapons. The Perforator I think you should only use when you have a Lepic in your group and he's actually pulling all the mobs together. And preferably an Enzo as well. So the Perforator is definitely the most specific weapon when it comes to like doing public matchmaking, because I only really use this when I have an Enzo and a Lepic in the group. If I don't have either of those, I prefer not to use the Perforator. That's when I would rather use the Restored Relic. This is only for clearing trash, not on the boss. So you use this all the time. This thing you can use with any group comp. Doesn't matter what you have. If you have a Lepic, it's better. If you have an Enzo, it's better. If you don't have either of those, that's completely fine. So this is honestly what I would suggest to build up first if you are doing a lot of public matchmaking. However, if you are joining us in stream and you're joining some of the group runs, you can easily get away with the Perforator with some Lepics and Enzos that we do have in the chat. And then the Last Dagger is what you will be using on the bosses. So it doesn't matter what's in your group comp, you're always going to use the Last Dagger. And then other honorable mentions I could give to you guys for bossing weapons would definitely be the Smithereens and the Executor. But we'll be making another video pretty soon breaking down the top 5 weapons for everybody for Void Erosion. So I don't want to make this video too long because we do still need to cover the Gley build as well. So the Gley build, for the components, we are running the Polar Knight set because it's going to give us a bunch of crit damage. However, I do want to go ahead and try the new Volcano set because it was reworked recently. I think it boosts handgun, hand cannon, and shotgun damage. So I definitely want to go try that out. But for now, we are just running the Polar Knight. Gives you a ton of crit damage, and since we'll be critting all the time, You're going to get that. You do also get little explosions of AoE explosions, proccing at a 30% chance. So when that does proc, it does just help with all the AoE clear as well. For the reactor, it doesn't matter the stats or the mounting. The only thing you care about is the substats, which is going to be duration up and skill cooldown. That's the only two things you worry about. Anything else on the reactor does not matter at all. Just get duration up and skill cooldown. And then lastly, let's have a look at the mods we're running for our Gley. We're using accelerated draft shaft because when you roll around all the place and this thing procs, your fire rate goes through the roof. Remember I said fire rate scales exponentially? Could you imagine having another 20% fire rate roll on our restored relic? So we'll actually be getting like 80% increased fire rate. So when you roll with this thing and it procs, literally everything in front of you just melts away. It's the coolest thing ever. My favorite thing about Gley. So roll around like a madman, proc this thing. It does crazy amounts of damage. It has a really small proc chance, but the more you roll, the more often it can proc. So definitely roll as much as possible to proc this bad boy. Crazy damage. And then we're running Focus on Dimension, MP Conversion, and Nimble Fingers. All of these is just for cooldown. As you can see, I didn't actually level up my Dimension since we're only using that for the cooldown. And we are running double HP mods, increase HP, stim accelerant, since we don't really have MP on Gley, so it doesn't matter the MP negative. And then we are running HP collector. This is really clutch and it does heal you, especially when you do have out the restored relic. Every time you kill an enemy, it's going to give you 9% of your HP with a 2-second cooldown. So very, very useful mod, keeping you alive. And then lastly, we are running 2 extension mods, maximize duration, skill extension. This is mainly just to go ahead and boost our sensory. As you can see there, our cooldown is at 9.8 seconds and our duration is at 9.4 seconds. So really strong. You could get this up a little bit higher as well, the duration, but you'd have to drop heat release. This is not a super important mod, but it is really nice to have these immunity mods, especially against like fire and poison, because when fire and poison starts sticking on you, that does just, you know, eat away your HP, and HP missing means you can't use your sensory. So yeah, I like to run the release mod of whatever we are fighting. Burn is for level 30, and then I would suggest using the toxic one for 28 and 29 if you are struggling with that. Also, the red mod doesn't matter at all. We just have that there from like a previous build. You don't need it at all, because the only thing you're going to be doing in your Gley, you spawn in, you press your 1, so you change over to your frenzied mode, and then you just hit your increased sensory on cooldown for infinite ammo. That's the only 2 abilities you're going to be using on Gley. Everything else doesn't matter. So you could literally take this build and put it on normal Gley as well. If you don't have ultimate Gley, it will give you the same results. And then lastly, let's quickly have a look at inversion reinforcements. I like to run with the biodensity augmentation. This does give you stacking HP up to 5 stacks, so it's like 50% increase HP. Nice little addition of HP there. Then for the recovery tree, we like to run heightened sensory cells. It's going to give you a nice little boost, like a nice little heal every 25 seconds. So really nice, especially when you're close to enemies, which is going to be all the time. And then lastly, we do run chill focus rounds. Again, switch out whichever focus round depending on what you're fighting. If you don't have enough to cap out all the trees, I would highly recommend put 1 point in hunt, since you can pick that up right away. Then make sure you max out this tree, because if you max out this tree, like you get all the perks, you don't have to select them all, because you can only select one of the same type at one time. But if you max this tree out, you will get these focus rounds, and that's just going to give you a ton extra damage, but it's going to reduce the resistances of the mobs you are shooting at. So that's why I would say get this tree unlocked as fast as possible. Just fill up the points, put a point in there, and then build out the recovery tree for the next priority is what I would say. That is about everything I can think of for the video. If I missed anything, or if you guys have any questions, ask them down below in the comments, as well as join the Discord. We have a bunch of tabs in the Discord with useful information, as well as screenshots of all these builds. So if I did miss anything, or if you guys want to see like the screenshots or like the builds for the other weapons, I will be making updated videos covering all that stuff pretty soon. But for now, just join the Discord and we have screenshots of everything there, as well as join the streams, twitch.tv/Augiesaint. We're live 6 days a week, as well as right here on YouTube is another place you can find us live as well. We do dual stream 6 days a week. I'll see you guys there. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, please drop a like and sub to the channel. Helps me out so much, and I'll catch you beautiful people in the next one, as well as the live streams. Augiesaint out.
Run free and dive into the sky. Hear the